Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the End Zone Oracle here with Glenn Ritter. I'm joined by Josh Ritter, not related, but both have great fantasy football minds. So we're gonna share a lot of that with you tonight. So before we get started, I always like to just share a little bit about how you can get in contact with us. So first of all, you can follow me on sorry, here's mine. So on X, my Minnesota Insider account is IESR_Minnesota or Gritter13. And then I'm also on TikTok, which is IESR Minnesota. And Josh, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody about how they can find your content?
Thank you, fellow Mr. Ritter. So you can find me on X at Josh Ritter 13, and you can also find me on TikTok at Josh.Ritter57. We talk a lot of Dolphins right now. It's not a pretty talk, but we talk a lot of Dolphins right now. And it was Florida Panthers Media Day. So I'm in my Panthers gear today, ready for that and getting ready for the Florida Panthers season. So you can follow me for various different teams coming up here.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and that's great that you're doing that. I've got my Minnesota shirt on because the Vikings on Sunday night were not all that impressive, and it definitely had some downfalls. And the Minnesota Lynx played tonight, so that's where the O comes in here on my shirt. We've got the Lynx logo there. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, so they're taking on the Golden State Valkyries tonight, actually in San Jose, which is crazy that, but they don't have their home arena is being used to play tennis or have a tennis tournament. So, but that was scheduled before the Valkyries were a team. And so they made the playoffs this year. Anyway, so but for tonight's show, I got a lot of stuff to go through. We're going to go through and talk about some of the top performers of this past week, some of the most disappointing performances. We talk about some injury updates and some guys to potentially pick up off the waiver wire to help fill in for those injuries. Maybe start talking about looking at handcuffs to your players if one of your starters is a little banged up. And before he gets banged up, especially if he's got a history of injuries, you'll want to take a look at some of those. We're going to have a little segment talking about start, sit, quit. So we each have our players that we want to talk about and positions. And let's see what else. Then after that, we'll take a break and we'll talk about the waiver wire. Who are some guys to target, panic or patience when it comes to superstars? Do you have a guy that you drafted rather highly and you're sitting here going, oh my goodness, what the hell is going on with my team? What happened to this guy? He should be performing a heck of a lot better. We'll talk about some particular players that I think are struggling compared to where they were drafted and what the expectations were. And then we'll talk about, should you be patient or should you hit the panic button and try to move that player or just move him to the bench? Then we'll make some pretty bold predictions later on. We'll talk about some potential trades. I'd love for you to throw in any potential trade offers that you've received, any waiver wire questions, any start or sit type of questions, or who to start. Throw those comments in there. We'll answer those throughout the show when the appropriate time comes up. So you got to stick around, make sure that you're staying around for that. And then we're going to look at some of those, like I said, at the end, towards some of those more favorable or favorable matchups and looking at some of those streaming defenses. And we'll talk about that too as well. So anyway, let's get into our first segment and I got to scroll down to find that the Oracle report, right? So let's talk about some of those top performances of the week. Josh, what were some of those that jumped out at you? Who are some players that you thought did well above projection?
I'm looking at a couple different quarterbacks that are Daniel Jones, who now for 2 weeks in a row has been a very solid quarterback. And remember, Daniel Jones played last year for the New York Giants. And while he did have Malik Neighbors, he had nothing else around him at all. And just not a lot of support on the offensive line and all those things. And he's now got a team in Indianapolis who has a lot of weapons. And he's being supported on the offensive line. They have a great offensive line. And you can see him being efficient. You can see him making the right reads 2 weeks in a row now, just absolutely playing above his head. And I think it's sustainable. I could see him being this year's Sam Darnold. He comes out of nowhere and he's just solid. But unlike Sam Darnold, he's got an ability to run, which in fantasy football is huge. So he's got that ability to get you 30, 40, 50 yards on the ground, in addition to a very efficient performance through the air. So I'm really high on Daniel Jones right now. He's still available in a lot of leagues because people were really low on him to start the season. But I think that he's someone you could stash, even if you've got a really high-end quarterback as your backup, that you feel really safe with your bye. And down the road, if something were to happen to that quarterback, you've got a solid quarterback to bring in. And the other one for me, really, I mean, he played my team this week, and Drake May, he had a rough week 1, but he was pretty efficient. And he actually surprised me with how nimble he was running with the football last week. And while the Patriots are not a great offense, he did play very well last week. And I do think that as Vrabel gets into his system and the team starts buying in more to Vrabel's system, that things will open up because they run the football. And when you run the football consistently, that opens things up in the passing game. And it also opens up for the run for the quarterback. So those are two players that I was very impressed with. And I think that are worth a stash if you've got an elite quarterback and you're just willing to churn over the bottom of your roster for a backup.
Yeah, those are great points. Joey Jets chimed in about Daniel Jones. Can't believe he's actually been this good. Yeah, I personally, I think it was spending a few weeks with Kevin O'Connell last year at the end of the season that helped get his mind right. Maybe, maybe I'm trying to take too much credit for that. But he is a quarterback whisperer. But anyway,
yeah, totally.
So for me, when I look at the players that jumped out, I think you got to look at the wide receiver position. Boy, there were some dominant performances this past week with Amon-Ra St. Brown scoring 3 touchdowns, Jamar Chase going off, Malik Neighbors, and then Rome Odunze. Who would have thought Rome Odunze would be a top 5 wide receiver scorer at this point in the season? I didn't. I had him on my bench in this league, and I haven't started him yet. It's changing this week when Josh and I are facing each other, so we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But anyway, thanks for all the comments, guys. It's great to see everybody in here. Looks like let's see, Terran's having a tough start to his fantasy football season, so he's a little bummed about that. Well, hey, that's why you're tuning in. We're going to try and give you some pointers to help you out. I'm sorry that my team did beat you rather handily this week in the IESR league, but that's all right. And Brian chiming in, he's doing really well, 2-0 in 3 of his leagues and 0-2 in the other. Yeah, the 0-2 things start. That happens. I'm in 3 leagues, 2-0 in one league, 1-1 in this league, and then 0-2 in the other league. But you know, it's and Joey Jets is 0-2 across the board. So, well, again, stay tuned. Hopefully, we've got some ideas for you, some players to target off the waiver wire, because there's a few that I would love to pick up, but I just can't find a spot on my roster for them. So hopefully you'll take in some of those. So anyway, so how about some of those? Let's talk about some of the worst performances of the week. Who are some of yours that you just think were like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? This guy's supposed to be so much better than that.
I'm going to go to the wide receiver position with a couple guys here. What is going on with AJ Brown? Yeah. That team is a good team, but they are just not targeting him. And I get that they are more in the trenches run and all of that, and they're not a high flying team, but it feels like they're just not prioritizing him at all in the passing game. And 2 weeks in a row now, I've got him in a couple leagues, and it's hurting me because they're just not targeting him. So I'm starting to wonder if this is a trend that is developing, and it's something to keep an eye on as we head towards bye weeks. Is this a guy that maybe we need to stash on some benches and kind of say, well, let's see, maybe wait until he has a week or two where they start targeting him more? But it's not for a lack of ability to catch the ball. He's not getting a lot of targets. So that's just very strange. And maybe it's the game flow for a couple weeks, but it's something that definitely stood out. And then the other one was one of my favorite players in drafting this year was Brian Thomas. Yeah. And it's just not been happening. Again, very few targets. And I thought he was going to be a top 5 fantasy football wide receiver, maybe even top 5 point scorer in fantasy football this year. I was really high on him, and it's just not been happening. So those are a couple of players that stood out for me. I'm not putting the panic button out there yet, but it's something to monitor if it becomes more of a trend down the line.
Oh, absolutely. And Brian Thomas is on my roster, as you well know. And I started him the first 2 weeks. He got a touchdown week 1, but it was a rushing touchdown. And this past week, I think he caught up like 4 passes, but he's been targeted actually a decent amount. But when you've got Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball, and he's not the prospect that he was talked up to be at the draft, he has not been that player. So let's see. Yeah, Joey Jets agreed with AJ Brown. Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is having a down year as well. And then let's see, Brian throwing Cortland Sutton, which was somebody that I have listed here too. But I think the one that I really want to focus on is Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, in many leagues, was probably a top 5 drafted tight end, and he has done next to nothing this year. I think 2 catches for 10 yards between the 2 weeks. I think he had a 1 catch for 5 yards in both weeks, something along those lines. But it's oh yes, and here's somebody
that scored a lot of points.
Yeah, exactly. So Fred and Sid, thanks for joining. Derrick Henry did lay a giant turd this week. Yeah, he had. Yeah, I think I wrote down how many yards he had. Yeah, yeah.
So, Fred, don't bench him. Do not. That is an anomaly that will not continue.
Yeah, thankfully it happened in week 2 and not in the playoffs because that's always tough. But let's see. I think one of the other ones too, as far as expectations, was Josh Allen. He should have put up a lot more points this past week against the Jets, but they were able to kill him with just running the ball that they didn't have to throw it. Because I do have Josh Allen as my quarterback in one of my leagues, which I was able to win that one. But still, Josh Allen should have given us more, I think, than that as an elite MVP type of player.
Well, that's something to keep an eye on with Josh Allen. Remember, when you're talking fantasy football, greatness from the player standpoint and the team standpoint doesn't always equate to fantasy football greatness. Yep. And what you've seen now is, and apologies to Joey Jets, but they got so far up on the Jets early that they didn't really need him to throw the ball much. And that's going to be a consistent theme with Buffalo through the season. Their schedule is one of the easiest schedules in the entire NFL, and they're going to win 13, 14 games this year. So you're going to have a handful of games this year where Josh Allen probably isn't playing by the beginning of the 4th quarter. So if they don't get their early points through the passing game or through Josh Allen rushing touchdowns, you're going to have weeks where he underwhelms from a statistical standpoint, even if it's good for the team. So just be aware of that with the Josh Allen. You're going to have weeks where you're frustrated because it's the end of the 3rd quarter and they're up 27-3 and he's out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Joey Jets just chimed in. Yeah. I can't argue with that either. They got smoked. So actually, thanks Larry for throwing in some of the IESR scores from week 2. So you got show me those TDs beat just enduring the sufferings of Joey Jets. Oh man, to lose by 1.08 points, that is rough. Joey, I'm sorry about that. That's got to hurt. Let's see here, and then as I mentioned earlier, I beat Terrence Bishop Sycamore team. So the Love Boat scandal. Again, I'm from Minnesota, so I think hopefully everybody out there remembers in the early 2000s when the Vikings had a bye week and went out onto Lake Minnetonka, rented a boat. A bunch of players did, and brought in some prostitutes and strippers, and did all kinds of crazy stuff on that little family. Like I think it's Alan Elma's charter boat boat cruise.
It had to have been an early season buy, otherwise it'd have been way too cold to do that.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember exactly what week it was, but it was so there was all kinds of craziness going on with that. So in remembrance of that, I had to bring that up. Let's see. So here, Brian with Dallas Parsonson's disease beat Bowling Holes. So Dan, who beat me in week one. Again, I mentioned this last week as a lineup decision. That's the thing. It's like I'm usually pretty good about drafting teams. It's this who to start that I always second guess myself. I feel like if you ever watch The League, I can't remember the character's name, but he would always like second guess his decisions. It would always bite him in the ass at the end every week. So again, great show. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It was a lot of fun.
We all feel that pain. We all
yes. Anyway, but that's the reason we have the show, right? We can talk about all this stuff. Oh, and then the final matchup from last week, Larry with the replacements beat Josh here running to the championship.
So many
you put up a ton of points too, Josh.
Yeah, no, I was one of the better scorers of the week, but it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and Joey Jets bringing up Ruxin, this Tinker Stinker. Yes. That's what it was. Thank you for bringing up Ruxin's name. I have some quotes from that show that I like to throw out a lot. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit now about some injuries. So obviously we're getting into the season. We've got some injuries that have reared their ugly heads, and we got to talk about some things to get by with those. So the main position that's been hit this week has been quarterbacks, right? Yeah. Joe Burrow with that toe surgery out 3 months, crazy. So former Viking Jake Browning will be taking over as the backup and actually facing the Vikings this weekend on Sunday. Also going against another backup, JJ McCarthy got a high ankle sprain. On the during the Sunday night game, they if you saw it during the broadcast, but they taped up his ankle during the game, but he continued played the whole time, but was in pretty bad shape after that. Also, Aaron Jones left for the Vikings. So that means if you've got Jordan Mason, put him in your lineup. Yeah. If Jordan Mason's on the waiver wire, pick him up. I've been saying since week one, Jordan Mason should be the primary ball carrier for the Minnesota Vikings. He's the one that is able to break off long runs. He's able to run between the tackles. Aaron Jones seems to want to run everything off tackle. So let's see. Justin Fields is actually going to be out now. So if you haven't heard that, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting for the Jets this weekend. And then Brock Purdy practiced today, but is probably still going to be on the bench behind Mac Jones. Anybody else that you're thinking about with injuries that jumped out at you?
That covers most of the injuries that are going to impact fantasy teams. What I will say is Joe Burrow is going to be out until most leagues champions season's over.
Yeah.
And if you watched the Bengals come back against the Jaguars last week, Jake Browning, he's been in the system for a while. He's got a ton of weapons around him. one of the better offenses in the league. If you have any of those quarterbacks, whether it's if Joe Burrow or anybody, pick him up, put him on your bench, start him, whatever you got to do. He's not going to be the best quarterback in the league, but he's going to be efficient. And if you're already looking at your roster and saying the season might be over because my quarterback's hurt, he's someone you can plug in, and at least there's a floor there because of their receiving core. They're not a running team. They're a passing team. So he's going to get his targets. He's going to get his completions. He's going to get his points. Cincinnati might not win a ton of games, but it doesn't matter for you. All you care about is that Jamar Chase is going to get his. You saw that against the Jags last week. They're going to throw the ball. So he's a really good pickup. I would stay as far away as I could from whoever's backing up Brock Purdy. Who is it?
That's Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. Yeah, that's right. I would stay away from that. I think that team's going to go really heavily into the running game. And, with J.J. McCarthy, I would feel comfortable putting in a backup for him in that regard, whoever you guys are having as a backup.
That's going to be Carson Wentz.
It's Carson Wentz. Again, he's a vet. He's got a good receiving core around him.
Yeah.
And Addison's coming back here in a couple weeks.
After this week's game. He's had a 3-game suspension, so he'll be back for week 4.
So they're going to throw the ball a lot too. And like you said, their running game's kind of in flux. So, take advantage of these quarterbacks that might be hurt for a while and plug in a guy that you would be comfortable saying he's going to throw the ball a lot and he's going to get the yards, regardless of maybe if he's somewhat limited in other areas. But I feel comfortable saying Carson Wentz might have as many yards as J.J. McCarthy would have.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Although he's only really been here for like 2.5 weeks, so he hasn't learned the system too much. But it all depends too on how the offensive line plays. I think that's such a huge piece of it for the Vikings. I know I was kind of going off on that with in the band chat a bit, but anyway, and I guess I think Mac Jones is not too bad because I think, if I remember right, when Mac Jones was drafted by the Patriots, I think the Niners had some interest in him because they kind of seemed like he would be a perfect fit for Shanahan there. But anyway, so we'll see how that plays out for them. But and again, Daniel Jones, make sure you pick him up if you need one. So, speaking of injuries, you got to be ready in case or before your player gets hurt, right? You don't want to be sitting here next week with how many of you panicked who are owners of Christian McCaffrey, and you heard that he's questionable for week 1 with a sore calf? Okay, as an owner of him in another league and somebody that owned him last year, I was freaking out. I immediately dropped somebody, picked up Brian Robinson Jr. I got to have that handcuff in place because if anything goes down, anything happens with him, the season goes down the tubes, right? So some other handcuffs that I wrote down that I think would be well worth it. And guys you should have on your bench that could take over the starting job as well. Cam Scatterbo. I think he's going to be taking over for Tyrone Tracy. He got more carries last week. I think he's going to be taking on more and more of the running back 1 duties there for the Giants. Bashal Tutin. I've never been a Travis Etienne fan. And then when they shipped off Tank Bigsby to Philadelphia, he moved up into that number 2 slot. He's a dynamic runner. In college, he had some fumbling issues, but I think he's going to continue to keep getting a lot more carries. It seems to be a pretty good receiver out of the backfield too. Let's see some other guys that I have. let's see here. Just gonna throw this in here. Joey Jets says I have CMC in a dynasty league. Already has Brees, Hubbard, Mason, and Pollard. Yeah, there you go. You have some options there. That's good.
Right.
Let's see other ones. Trey Benson again. James Conner. He gets banged up pretty regularly every year.
Mm-hmm.
I think last year he played most of the games, but just wasn't quite sure. So again, that's somebody that I would pick up. Blake Corum is another, and obviously I already mentioned Brian Robinson Jr. Any other players that you think would be a good handcuff? Maybe any receivers or anything like that?
Well, I'm trying to think. I really do. I'm going to kind of back up what you said on this one and say,
Sure.
If you have a Jaguars running back, you should have 2 Jaguars running backs, because they have 2 running backs right now, and I don't think they have a clue who is their starter and who's their second and third stringer. I'm sort of out on Tank Bigsby a bit. It looks like they've kind of backed off, but I will say it's not really a handcuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if you get more consistent fantasy production from Wan'Dale Robinson than you get from Malik Neighbors, because Malik Neighbors gets the big play. So he's kind of like this, but Wan'Dale Robinson's getting more targets than Malik Neighbors is right now. So if you've got Malik Neighbors in your lineup and Wan'Dale Robinson's available, I'd pick him up and just keep an eye on maybe the matchup. If they're playing a team with a top flight cornerback that they're going to try to really focus on Malik Neighbors, it might be worth putting Wan'Dale in his place sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great point about Wan'Dale Robinson. I actually have him down to talk about a little bit later on in the show, just because, especially in a PPR league, he gets a ton of catches. And and also, as Brian pointed out that Tank Bigsby was traded to the Eagles, so you don't have to worry about him in the with the Jaguars. Yeah, it was after week 1.
Okay,
he got traded to.
I totally missed that.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So let's move along. We got we're getting close to ready for our first break here coming up soon. So start, sit, quit. Why don't you go first with your guys who you would think you should start, bench, or just give up on?
I got to start. My start is Wan'Dale Robinson. Yep. Like I said, came out of nowhere, and he's getting all the targets in the New York Giants offense, which has looked surprisingly efficient. And, their defense is pretty bad, but they're going to be behind a lot. So targets equal points in fantasy. Teams that don't have good defenses usually make a lot of receiving stats because they're behind a lot. So they're passing, they're getting a lot of garbage time stats. Wan'Dale Robinson for me is a solid start right now. You should feel really good if you've got him in your lineup. One receiver that I was really high on that I'm starting to waver on, and I'm putting him in bench, and I've benched him in a couple of leagues now, with Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know what's going on with this guy. It's just the production's just not been there. He had flashes last year, but it was underwhelming last year. And I thought this year they was going to make him the focus point of the offense, and it just isn't happening. And I would be, if I was an owner of Marvin Harrison Jr. and I had a backup that I felt good about, I would put him in the lineup over Marvin Harrison and just see what happens. And maybe sometimes that means that you miss out on his coming out party. And that's a thing. But you don't want to take a guy you drafted high that's not performing and keep him in your starting lineup for week after week after week after week when the evidence builds, and wait until it's too late to pull him out and you're too far behind in standing. So sometimes, even if you miss out on one good week and then, you're like, okay, maybe it's time to pull him back in. If evidence starts showing that he's not getting those target shares, you got to put him on your bench and find somebody else. And I had Tank Bigsby for my give up, but apparently the Jags agreed because they traded him. He's stuck behind Saquon now, but he does have a better offensive line. So maybe he gets a carry or two. But honestly, if he's stuck behind Saquon, team. But
maybe he's a handcuff that if you have Saquon, maybe you want to pick up Bigsby. Although I'm not sure if he's the number 2 running back there or not, but so for me, as far as the starts, sit, quit, start Juwan Johnson, State's tight end. He's been like the only. Well, I guess Kamara's had a couple of decent yardage games, I guess, but he's the only receiver that's that's getting any catches, and it's the with Spencer Rattler as their starter. I mean, he's targeting Juwan Johnson, so I'd get him in your lineup. He's scored, I think, both weeks. One that I would bench is TJ Hawkinson as far as the tight end goes. He's just he just hasn't been able to do much, and I think a lot of it has been he's been forced to help in pass protection because Justin School has been an awful left tackle filling in for Christian Darrisaw. But Darrisaw might come back this week. He was a full participant in practice today. So we'll see if that means he's going to be on the field this weekend. Because if that happens, I think TJ Hawkinson's numbers will pick back up. And the guy that I would give up on is Mark Andrews. I think that he wasn't really very good last year. For those of you that had him as your starting tight end, I know he started out slow, and Isaiah Likely was huge early on, but Isaiah Likely's hurt. So, I just don't see. I don't see Mark Andrews bouncing back. I think it's Zay Flowers is the main receiving target there in Baltimore. So that's the guy who I would. I would just give up on him. But Fred and Sid have some comments here. So start Ramondre Stevenson, okay? But quit Miles Sanders. Yeah. I could see that. Miles Sanders has done nothing in Dallas since coming there.
Ramondre Stevenson gives you a floor, though. He doesn't get a lot of touchdowns, but he does give you a floor if you're struggling in a bye week. And we'll talk about bye weeks when we get there down the road. But I wouldn't quit on Ramondre. I would keep him in my lineup, but I wouldn't ever expect him to give you 30, 35 points. But he's going to give you 10, pretty solid most weeks, because he's going to break off 5 or 6 10-yard runs during the course of a game.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the offensive line situation in New England is a little shaky still. But anyway, all right, let's go to let's have a commercial break here. You are watching the End Zone Oracle here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be back in just 2 or 3 minutes.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
All right. Welcome back to the End Zone Oracle. Thanks for coming back, everyone. And make sure you check out our sponsors. Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky is absolutely fantastic. I always have to have a couple of bags around at all times, just because it tastes great. It's awesome. I mean, super lean, great protein. Like I said, I always have one at home and one in my desk at work. Great mid morning or mid afternoon snack. And then Vital Apparel, great workout gear. If you need something, that's where you should get it. Super comfortable, and part of the proceeds go to mental health, supporting mental health. So, which is huge in our country. So, definitely check them out. But again, let's get back to our agenda. So, the waiver wire courtroom. So let's talk about some of these guys that I think we should be looking at for on the waiver wire if they're still available for you. So first I had written down was Cam Scadabo. I'm not sure if he's available in many leagues. I think a lot of people drafted him after his wonderful performance in that bowl game with Arizona State. But he was drafted lower than what I thought he should have been. But again, that was me, just because he was so darn productive. But he's definitely somebody that I think would be worthwhile to have on your bench and start potentially in the right opportunity, because the Giants are likely going to be trailing in most games, so they're probably going to abandon the running game sooner rather than later in most games. But he's somebody that I think would be worth picking up if he's available in your league. What do you think, Josh? Would you pick him up? Would you?
I would stash him and see what they're doing with him. He has some power to his game. So if they're using him inside the 5-yard line, I would pick him up.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure what their long-term goals are with that. I wouldn't expect him to get the ball 20 times, 25 times in a game and get you 80 yards. But what you might want to pick him up for is, hey, I got my best running back's on a bye and I got to pick up somebody, or my best running back got hurt. And I think this guy can get 30 yards and a touchdown and get me 10 points to compensate. Those the kind of thing that I think that, and maybe once in a while he goes for 60, 70, 80 yards, but I wouldn't expect him to have consistent carries necessarily as a rookie, but he does have that power element to his game where maybe they use him around the goal line and you can get a lot of cheap touchdowns.
Yep. Well, and that's a great point, because sometimes it depends on the scoring of your league, right? If if the touchdowns are weighted way more than yards, then yeah, he's definitely somebody you want to have on your roster. You might vulture some touchdowns. The pass interference gets him at the 1. Boom, Cam Scadabo gets a 1-yard touchdown plunge.
Russell Wilson's an older quarterback, so they're not going to be doing quarterback sneaks at the 1-yard line. That's just not smart. So they're going to hand it to their rookie back and say, get your butt in the end zone. So he might be a good one to stash and just see if he is going to get those touchdowns. He's worth starting in a pinch, because you have a good chance every week of getting at least 10 points out of a touchdown and a few yards here and there. So, yeah.
Another you mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson earlier, so I think we're going to skip over him. But another wide receiver that I think everybody should think about adding to their roster if they have a need for a wide receiver would be Troy Franklin for Denver. Cortland Sutton has been disappointing this year. Troy Franklin's been the guy that's been getting all the targets from Bo Nix this year. Definitely somebody that I think that you should look at if you haven't already. If he's available in your league, I would take a look at adding him. Go ahead, Josh.
I'll say about him, Bo Nix and Troy Franklin played together on that Ducks team a couple years ago. They have a chemistry together, and that means something for quarterbacks and wide receivers. Specifically, if you have a league that gives you bonuses for long touchdowns, because Troy Franklin is more of a deep threat than he is a possession receiver. So you're not going to necessarily get 12 targets a game from Troy Franklin, but he can make 3 or 4 targets, 15, 20 points for you, because Bo Nix feels comfortable throwing downfield to Troy. He's got a tall body. He's got a wide catch range. So jump balls will work for Troy Franklin. And as they build their chemistry, you're going to start seeing deep balls going to Troy Franklin. So if you get bonuses for long touchdown passes, or like Glenn had said, you get more points for, like, if you're in a non-PPR league and touchdowns count for everything, I think Troy Franklin's going to be a really good player for you to have on your lineup.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Actually, thanks for sharing that. I had no idea that he went to Oregon and played with Bo Nix. So that's a great point about that chemistry too. One other player that, as a completely under the radar kind of guy, maybe more of a handcuff player, is Woody Marks, backup running back for Houston, with everybody getting hurt there, with Joe Mixon still out. He's out at least 4 weeks, right, to start the season. Mm-hmm. Nick Chubb, how much can you trust him with his broken down body? Woody Marks could be a sneaky play down the road. Anyway, so those are some waiver wire players that I think you should potentially look into. So let's go to our next segment here: panic or patience. So we've got some struggling stars here in the league, and I'm going to go through position by position and kind of look at go through the list and think about where they were drafted and what the expectations were. And would you say it's time to panic and they need to move this guy, or let's show some patience, maybe just have him sit on the bench for a few weeks until he gets things squared away? Jalen Hurts, we talked about him earlier, the struggles with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. What do you think about Jalen Hurts? Is it time to push the panic button with the Philly offense and the passing game?
I would lean towards panic with him from a fan. Remember, this is a fantasy standpoint. I think he's going to be a solid quarterback. They're going to be a good team, but I think they're going to be leaning on Saquon Barkley, and they're going to be ahead a lot. And do you really trust Jalen Hurts to get a lot of points week to week? That you really need your quarterback to be a solid 15 to 20 point a week guy. And there's enough out there on the waiver wire that I think it can have a way higher floor than Jalen Hurts. And he's going to have weeks where they have great offensive stats and he looks great. But there's a ton of weeks where he's just not going to get a lot of points because they're winning the game and Saquon's running hard and there's no reason to throw the football.
What do you think about the tush push, though? Will that be relevant enough to or be implemented enough at the goal line to make him a relevant starter?
It does help. It certainly does help. But how often do you really get the ball at the 1 yard line? You can't rely on that week to week. And I don't know. I feel like they're going to probably stop doing that in the second half of the season at the goal line when they're doing well in the division, which they probably will be, and they don't want their quarterback getting hurt.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't trust that as something to rely on to keep that quarterback when you've got other guys that are just going to be throwing the ball a lot more throughout the season.
Okay. So how about Kyler Murray? Okay. We talked a little bit about Marvin Harrison Jr., being kind of having a rough start to the season. How much of that do you attribute to Kyler Murray? Because I don't think Trey McBride's really gotten a ton of carries or catches either. I mean, he had a decent amount week one, but I'm not sure exactly where he is in the standings for tight ends. But I was expecting a little bit more from him.
So was I. I've got him in our IE Sports Radio League as my starter still, and quite honestly, I'm on the fence on it. Okay. I don't know what to do with him yet. I don't have a backup that I feel comfortable putting in for him, but I'm also concerned about the way their offense is going right now. I don't understand what's going on there offensively. It doesn't make any sense to me. They should be utilizing – thank you. Brian just called it. They should be utilizing Harrison more. The fact that they don't is concerning. He's had 2 years now to get some sort of a rhythm with Harrison. He's not a hard receiver to get rhythm with. He's a very gifted receiver, and they just don't throw him the ball, and I don't understand it. I'm leaning towards panic because I don't know, but I got to believe that eventually they figure it out and they start feeding him the football.
Yeah, he was one that I had last year in the league, thinking I would hopefully get some rushing touchdowns out of him and some work there. But yeah, that's a tough one. Let's see. Let's talk. Let's go. Let's talk about a wide receiver we haven't really talked about yet. Matthew Golden. The talk all through training camp from Green Bay was this guy is something different. He's special. He's going to be a wide receiver number 1 in no time. Through 2 weeks, hasn't really put up decent numbers yet.
Yeah. Again, same thing. I feel like Green Bay wide receivers are hard in fantasy the way that New England running backs used to be under Bill Belichick.
Yep.
You don't know which receiver is going to go off week to week. They have a system out there where they throw to the open guy. They don't rely on a top target. They don't care who the top target is. They're going to throw to the right person at the right time. It's kind of always been that way in Green Bay.
Yep.
So I don't trust Green Bay receivers implicitly. I don't think I have a Green Bay receiver in any of the 8 leagues I own because I just don't trust them. So I would be not panicking. You would definitely want to keep him on your bench for bye weeks and such, but you can't trust him week to week.
Do you think he's going to have an uptick with Jaden Reed getting hurt?
Could.
Because Jaden Reed's broke his collarbone, right? So,
yeah,
I'm not sure exactly how much more attention he's going to get or how many more targets.
Green Bay's just though, like they're one of those teams where you might have a guy come out there next week that you've never heard of before, and he gets 6 catches for 120 and a touchdown. Like they're just that way. I don't. They just have a system where the receivers just it doesn't matter who you are.
Well, this past week it was Tucker Kraft, who led all tight ends in scoring. I think last week, or it was pretty close anyway. And
credit to the Green Bay because they have continuity at the quarterback position, right?
Yeah.
They've only had 3 or 4 starters in the last 30 years or whatever. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But when you have the quarterback runs the show. It's not like Miami and Tyreek Hill where you got to feed Tyreek Hill 15 times or he's going to throw a fit. Like everyone knows if they're a receiver in Green Bay, I got to do my thing and it'll come to me when it comes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's move on to our next little segment here, the fantasy fortune teller. Ooh. So we're each going to make a bold prediction of something that we think is going to happen this week. Josh, you want to go first?
Okay, I don't want this to happen. Okay, let me make this abundantly clear. I do not want this to happen, not only because it affects my team in a negative way, but I'm also going up against this player, against Glenn this week, which we'll talk about in a little while. But Miami secondary is patently awful. They're the worst secondary I might have ever seen in the history of pro football. It is awful. And I'm going to predict Keon Coleman will have at least 100 receiving yards and a touchdown versus the Dolphins. And I think that's being conservative.
All right. Thank you. And that as we were putting our notes together today, I noticed that, and I'm like, he's got a good point. I gotta, because I do have Keon Coleman in the IESR league, and he was on my bench as one of my receivers, but he's in the starting lineup now. Because the more you think about it, like, oh yeah, I got to get him out there. So tomorrow night, going to be hoping for some Keon Coleman magic. For me, I think Isaac Tesla is going to score at least 1 touchdown this weekend with for Detroit. If everybody's wondering who the hell is Isaac Tesla, he's a wide receiver, big, fast, strong wide receiver for the Lions. They're playing on Monday night against the Ravens, and the guy, I think in his senior year in college, I think he had like 37 receptions. Definitely not a production monster in college, but they took him in like the 3rd round of the draft this past year. So he's a rookie and has had some of the greatest highlight catches, one in each of the games that were just amazing catches, because he did score in week 1 on a pass that was initially ruled incomplete, but he definitely
play better in the NFL than they do in college. And
yeah, well, and it's I got to give the Lions credit. They saw something in him to use that draft pick, because I think a lot of teams, when they see players like that, they're like, oh, he's somebody that we can get in the 6th round or 7th round. Nobody's going to really pay any attention to him, and then maybe somebody else pops up in the 5th.
Yep.
They saw him. They wanted to get him in the 3rd. That's the thing. The Lions have never been afraid to just draft whoever they want when they're on the clock. Like Jack Campbell. I remember when they drafted him at number 18 overall, and everybody's like, really? I thought he was like going to be a 2nd round pick. They didn't care. And he's been the player that they drafted him to be. Brian Branch, the other guy. They trading up to get Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't thought to be a top 12 player in that draft, but they saw something in him and saw the traits. And so Brad Holmes, I think, is the name of the GM there in Detroit. So I got to give them credit because they do a great job of finding players that fit their system. So anyway, so that's somebody who I think is going to have a breakout, another breakout week. I think he's gonna get in the end zone against the Ravens. I think that's worth checking out. Right. Let's go talk trade Tinder. So this trade that I have here is one that my son called me about last night, and that's for my opinion on this trade offer that he received. So he's in a league with a bunch of his friends in college. It's a PPR league, full PPR. I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 teams. It doesn't really matter. But he was offered DJ Moore and DK Metcalf for Terry McLaurin and Isaiah Pacheco. And my initial reaction was, that's a bunch of those are all some mediocre players, right? there isn't anybody in that trade.
Isn't that what it always is?
That's going to this is going to be the key to winning a championship. And my initial reaction was like, of the players, I think Terry McLaurin's got the highest upside of any of them, with Jaden Daniels throwing him the ball. DK Metcalf has been pretty solid for the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know. What would you do? Would you swipe right or swipe left? I
don't even know. I'm not on Tinder.
Neither am I. I'm trying to
right or left what that means, but I'll tell you.
Would you turn it down or would you accept it?
If I'm the one giving up McLaurin and Pacheco, which is what I think is what's going on here, right?
Yeah,
I'm turning that down.
Okay,
because I think that what that person's trying to do is they're trying to package a player that's been playing pretty well, DK Metcalf, with a quarterback who has a lot of upside in Aaron Rodgers, with a guy that he knows probably isn't going to do much with DJ Moore because Rome Odunze's kind of taken those targets away. And quite frankly, their quarterback is a struggle bus right now.
Yeah.
And he's trying to take it and say, McLaurin and Pacheco haven't really done much so far this year, but I expect them to do more. And I agree with that. I think you're looking at McLaurin and Pacheco as guys who down the road are going to be more valuable than they are right now based on their just 2 weeks of production. I'm actually really high on Pacheco to go forward. I think the Kansas City offense is going to start doing better when the Kansas City team plays lesser opponents. It's coming up. They've had a rough start, but I'm not – if you're one of those people that doesn't think the KC offense is going to be top 10 at the end of the year, like, I don't know what you're thinking. So I would turn that down in a heartbeat. I would say no, thank you. I don't want any part of DJ Moore anymore. And he may have 1 week where he goes off, because he seems to every year have one of those crazy weeks where he gets like 50 points. But the rest of the year, it's just nothing.
Right.
And McLaurin, he's going to get you consistent scoring. He may not have had the huge part of the early season that you would think, but he's someone you want, because they're going to be playing high volumes of important games down the stretch that they're going to need him in. And they're not running away with anything, because the Eagles are going to be there. So they're going to be playing meaningful games all the way to the end of the season, as is Kansas City. So I would definitely say no.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're in agreement there too. So I was hoping that maybe some other trade offers would come in on the messages here, but nothing has popped up. So let's talk about some of the our favorite matchups of the weekend, and some of those streaming defenses that you should be looking at for your team if you take that approach to team defense of just picking up teams that have a good matchup. Who are some that you'd be looking at?
Seattle's playing the Saints. Whoever's playing the Saints, you're taking that, especially if they're a relatively decent defense, which Seattle is. You're taking that team. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's playing the Dolphins, I'm sorry, it's my team, but
Yep.
I don't see a lot of upside right now in what we're doing offensively with the offensive line issues. We've got the whole right side of the offensive line is a complete mess. So you're going to get Tua down at least 3 or 4 times every single game. So you're going to get points from sacks. So I would stick with that. Also, don't hate Arizona's matchup against San Francisco with Mac Jones. I know you're a little higher on Mac Jones than I am, but I just don't see a lot there with Mac Jones. I think he was way overrated coming out of college and never has done anything that really made me feel otherwise. So if Arizona, I don't know that you necessarily think they'll win that game, but it's going to be a low scoring game. So those are a few that stand out for me.
Yeah, the other defense to look at is Green Bay, if they haven't already been drafted. They're playing the Browns this week, and I'm trying to remember who. I know I had it written down of who they were playing next week. So and then next week they're playing Dallas.
Oh, Dallas next weekend. Yeah.
So again, those are a couple of games where I think that they could do some things there. Yeah. So the other one actually that I have written down for a defense for this week is Kansas City. They're playing the Giants.
Yeah.
That should be. I think. Should be able to get some points there too.
Yep.
Although you never really know which Russell Wilson you're going to get,
but you got to figure that the Chiefs are this is gonna be a statement. Hey guys, we were 0-2, but we're not done yet for the week.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's kind of run through these next ones here. So, so the Wheel of Misfortune. So, I mentioned this earlier in the show. I am suffering from not starting Rome Odunze, him being on my bench this past week. Both weeks. He's I think he's the 5th highest scoring receiver in our league, and he's been on my bench both weeks. So I don't know if that's a good sign that I'm good at drafting players, but horrible at pulling the trigger on who to start. But it was thankfully I got the win against Heron, so it didn't cost me a win. It cost me anything there. But how about for you? What's something you want to shout out about?
I'll say, if you have any Bills, just put them in the lineup tomorrow. You're not going to be disappointed. The Dolphins defense might be the worst secondary. Ife Melifonwu, they had a halfway decent safety duo, but Ife's out. So now they got their 3rd safety in. And as a Dolphins fan, I'm not even totally sure who they're going to be playing. Their quarterback depth is eviscerated. Storm Duck was supposed to be their best cornerback, and he's out. Like, you got a Buffalo Bill. I don't care if it's Dalton Kincaid. I don't care if it's Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, whoever it is, certainly James Cook. Put them in the lineup, because they're definitely not scoring less than 30 points.
Oh yeah, is the team? Yeah, the Bills. Yeah, that's a good point. I would say also too, my Vikings defense or Vikings team has been beat up this season. Down some players. They're starting to get some players back, but I think that any Bengals receivers, and especially with Jake Browning, he played the Vikings a couple of seasons ago, and they beat the Vikings, and he was a factor in the game. And he went off saying they never should have cut me. He had some expletives in there too, but he took it personally that the Vikings gave up on him. And yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Real quick point. Do you remember Scott Mitchell?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when Dan Marino got hurt in 93, I think it was, Scott Mitchell came in and played great for like a month and a half and got a contract out of it. I think you could see a similar thing happening for Jake Browning this year. I think he could get himself a contract in the 2026 season with a team that says, oh, that guy can play. Now, whether he can be a real starter for a real team and actually maybe a team that's not so good, that remains to be seen. But I think this year, Cincinnati's going to be better than people think they will be today, because I think Jake Browning's a better quarterback than they think.
So it actually kind of reminds me of Case Keenum in 2017. They were talking about this on the local radio station, Sports Talk Radio, because it's kind of been a history for the Vikings. When the starter gets hurt, somebody comes in and does well. So in 2017, I think the starter that year was going to be Sam Bradford, and got hurt because they had traded for Sam Bradford the previous offseason when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. Case Keenum comes in and takes them to the NFC Championship game, Minneapolis Miracle, beating the Saints, again, beating Sean Payton, who just, again, I despise that guy. Anyway, and then in that offseason, he got a big contract from, wasn't it Denver that paid him big money?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah. And then now he's the third string quarterback in Cleveland, back where he should be, right? So it was one of those. There's those things that happen like that. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But let's actually, you know what? Let's talk about the Battle of the Ritters here on this week on the IESR game here. So let me see. I know that Larry put that in as a comment for us to talk about. Yeah, here we are. Yeah. So week 3, facing each other. All right. So Josh, I'll go through my starting lineup, and then you can go through yours, and we'll have everybody out there comment who you think is going to win this matchup. So let me go through mine here first. So I have as my starting quarterback Lamar Jackson, going against Detroit on Monday night. And from Detroit, I have got Jahmyr Gibbs as my running back. Then my receivers, I've got Keon Coleman, Emeka Egbuka. Coleman obviously going Thursday night against Miami, so guaranteed 15 to 20 points is what you're thinking there, Josh?
Yeah.
Something like that. Emeka Egbuka, who's questionable, so I might switch him out for Tet McMillan, depending on health on Sunday. Trey McBride is my tight end going against San Francisco in San Francisco. My other running back, I've got Jordan Mason going against Cincinnati at home. Then as a wide receiver tight end flex, Rome Odunze. Harrison Butker is my kicker, and I got the Chiefs defense going against both of them going against the Giants. All right, so Josh, why don't you run through yours and explain, tell everybody why you think you're going to win.
It's a tough lineup to go against. I'll tell you what, I like a few of your matchups that you got going on there, but like I said, I got Kyler Murray at quarterback. I'm on the fence about it, but I'm going to roll with it one more week against that San Francisco defense. We'll see how it goes. Devon Achane against Buffalo. I do think that despite the fact that Buffalo is a tough opponent on a Thursday night on the road, Devon Achane is the one Dolphin I still trust in fantasy. He gets a lot of catches in PPR, and this is a PPR league, and he's going to get like 5 or 6 screens. He's an expert at making people miss. So his floor is super high every single week. I got Jamar Chase going up at Minnesota. Again, as I've said before, he's going to get his targets, and he's a big play waiting to happen. I got Chris Olave at Seattle. Not 100% excited about that matchup, but someone's got to catch the ball for New Orleans, and they're probably going to be behind. So I figure that's a good matchup there. Mark Andrews is tight end. You had mentioned earlier, not really doing much. I just don't have a tight end in this league, so it is what it is. I believe this is the league that I had George Kittle.
Yeah, George Kittle is on injured reserve. Yeah.
What do you do? So Mark Andrews as a backup is about as good as I can hope for. I got Bucky Irving against the Jets. I feel very confident about that matchup being a good one for me. Bucky Irving is an ex-Duck that has been amazing. Love watching him play. DK Metcalf at New England. New England secondary isn't anything great. Christian
Gonzalez,
thank you. He's been injured, so even if he comes back this week, which I don't know what his status is, but
I think he's out.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good matchup. And then you got Jaime Fairbairn, whatever, it's a kicker. And then, like I said, I stream whoever plays New Orleans if that team's available. So I got Seattle's defense.
That's a good decision. Yeah, you've got a great team in there as well. Looking at the projections, you're projected to beat me by 1.42 points. So close, but we're both projected to put up over 130 points. So what does everybody think? Who do you think is going to win that matchup? Which of the Ritters are you thinking? Any votes? I think we lost everybody. There's supposed to be a bunch of people here, but
that's all right.
It's not so much. Anyway,
Glenn's gonna win because Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in fantasy football, and I've got 3 leagues, and so if I lose to Glenn, I'm probably winning elsewhere. So I'm
okay. There you go. Well,
Brian said Glenn, so we're good to go there. All right.
Oh, okay, Brian. Oh, thanks, Brian. Okay, thanks for chiming in there. Appreciate that. All right, let me go back to the banners here. So, let's see. Is there anything that we didn't cover? I think we got it all covered. So, again, that's the show. Looking for somebody to join me next week. So, Joey Jets, if you're still watching, or Brian, you want to come on and be a co-host with me, I'd love to have somebody else jump in, but otherwise I'll join on band here and check. Hopefully, get somebody lined up to join. Again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Great interaction. Loved sharing all of our fantasy football knowledge with all of you. Be sure to check out our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky and Vital Apparel. Be sure to check us out on all of our social media apps. And let's see here. Make sure that I bring that up. So follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube at IE Sports Radio. On all those places. Got great shows pretty much every day of the week. Check those out. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the kind words. And Josh, go ahead.
So anybody that listens out there, whether you're listening live or you're listening down the road, you've seen our handles on X and on TikTok. This weekend, if you got really cool matchups that happen, you won by half a point, you lost by half a point, you blew a team out and you got the most points you've ever had in your life, shoot a picture of it. Maybe we'll shout you out on a future episode. You never know.
Yes, definitely. Please do so. Thanks, guys. All right. That's it for this week. And as a warning to everybody, I'm going to be unavailable in 2 weeks. So Josh is going to be taking over as host for that week. So if there's anybody out there that wants to join him, I think that would be awesome. And again, thanks so much for tuning in. This was the End Zone Oracle here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Have a great week, everybody. Good luck, and go Vikings. Skol.